Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Excellent.
Okay, so fired up, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Harry. I will be your host for this evening or this morning on your commute. And I'm actually joined in studio by none other than Rafe, who has returned from a long, arduous, fantastic adventure in Europe. He claims that it was summer school and he was working, but we all just think it was a farce for a fancy vacation that was prepaid with room and board. Is that right?
Well, okay, so what was it and what was it not? Well, first of all, the first thing it was is that it was an opportunity for us to thank the great listeners that we have for making us a global top 10% podcast. Remember, you can reach us at bufnagle.com. Remember to share the love, share the buff, give us a 5-star review, hit subscribe, like, smiley star, whatever those things are that make our lives better, they will make your lives better as well. So do those things, tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. And Harry, what was I doing? I was, if you remember, I was at
gallivanting around Belgium and France.
Well, I did a couple things. So I flew to, and I think I mentioned this a little bit a couple weeks ago. I flew originally to Paris. I took a train to Strasbourg, and I looked at the cathedral, and that's episode 201 or 202 or 2 or something like that. And then after that, the next day I went down to Bar, B-A-R-R. It was just 40 minutes south of Strasbourg, and I took part in a two-week summer school session in architecture and crafts there in Alsace. And Alsace is that little area that keeps getting traded back and forth between Germany and France. It's those poor guys. I read about one guy who had he lived in he got traded 5 times back and forth between
Germany. How that works
and
for your passport.
Yeah, well, back then it was more just paper, and there wasn't this automatic facial recognition stuff going on. But I was there in Alsace for 2 weeks, and then I spent a couple days in Germany on my way to Belgium and Bruges, which is north of it's kind of northwest of Brussels, about 15 miles from the North Sea. So it's an old medieval town. It still maintains a lot of its medieval character, including a gigantic moat, which actually has a set of canals that run around the city, and there's still gates there and stuff. So we did that, and we did another piece of architecture and crafts there in Bruges, and learned all sorts of wonderful things. It was a vacation unlike any I've ever had. And it was 7+ weeks of school, unlike any school I have ever had.
So do you think you are more physically or mentally exhausted?
Well, so I learned when I was over there that now people are going to roll their eyes and they're going to say, see, old guys don't know how to use their phones because this has already happened. But I learned that my phone has been tracking my steps. It wasn't like I had to turn it on. It had been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I turn on it telling me. I mean, but
it keeps it in the background. It does it.
Yeah. So it's been doing that, and I started and looked at my steps, and my steps increased dramatically when I got over there because both those places, both Bar and Bruges, were highly walkable cities, and my steps went way up. My distance traveled went way up. My calorie burn went way up, and then when I got to the second piece in Bruges, we were living on the 3rd floor of we would call it the 3rd floor. The Europeans call it the 2nd floor because they start at 0.
Mm-hmm.
And they start counting floors at 0. So we were on the 3rd floor of a boarding school. The poor girls that were in the class were on the 4th floor, depending on how you count, right? They were 1 floor above us. So they had even more steps. I got lots and lots of staircase time. I got lots and lots of long walks around Bruges. And I tell you, and all that stuff gets tracked on my phone now, so I can go back and look actually to see, when I had 30,000 steps on certain days, or there was a lot of walking. So I physically got a lot of that. We didn't do a lot of weightlifting. We didn't do a lot of, extreme sporting kind of things. We spent a lot of time drawing, and we spent a lot of time studying and discussing philosophical and metaphysical aspects of things like art and architecture and the nature of man's relationship to the universe and all those wonderful things like we like to talk here on the Buff. So it was wonderful. Am I more physically or mentally worn out? Yes, I am.
Well, I'm sure you learned all different kinds of things, while you were over there for your 7 weeks. For some reason, I thought you were coming back next week.
No, well, yeah, it was hard to count because the first one went from like a Sunday through and including Monday. And then the next one started the following Saturday, I think. So it was kind of hard to tell when they started and stopped. It wasn't full weeks and things, but it was about 2 weeks and about 5 weeks plus a little travel time in between. And there was all sorts of wonderful stuff there. It was,
and I'm sure we'll get to hear
great. Yes,
all about it.
We're gonna.
Right?
I'm in the process of putting the notes together in a way that are not just a. Well, this is what I did on this day, and then the next day I did this, and the next day I did that, because that's not very exciting.
Right.
I'll try to break it into some grand principles and examples for all that kind of thing. I imagine 2 or 3 episodes talking about that sort of thing, because there were all sorts of things learned. And the problem was I learned about a million things. And every time I learned something, I learned that there were like 5 other things that I didn't know.
Sure. That tends to go.
Yeah, I got a little bit dumber. So, but you've been hanging out, just doing, summer, July and August in North Carolina. And that was not uneventful.
Well, I don't even remember, what kinds of things I've either texted you or messaged you or called you about. This past week, we were all sick, so that was great. Jamie's finally getting over whatever it is. So do you
have COVID-24? Is it?
COVID-24, or maybe it's the pre-COVID-25. We just we're in the trial.
We're late in the year, so the model year has kicked over, right?
It's the COVID school year is really what it is.
Yeah. Okay. It's 24-25 school year.
Yeah. So we're sick with something. We think it was just a bad bout of the flu.
Yeah,
kids were over it within about 18 hours, which was really nice.
That's what kids do. They bounce back quick, man.
Yeah. So Jamie's just getting better. I'm feeling better. So that is all good. Let's see.
And you started a new job thing, right? I mean, did you get?
Well, yeah. So like this job thing I'm doing, is a year-long, I would say, like immersion type of program.
Yeah.
Where I get to see all aspects, or a lot of the business aspects of Corning Optical Communications. And my first one was dealing with connector technology, right? So designing and more or less theoretically thinking about how do certain connectors and designs work.
Okay, so you're doing fiber optics, right? So it's like wires, but they're made of like plastic tubes where light particles go flying up and down, right? Glass. Okay.
Glass. Yep.
Yeah. So you can't just twist the wires together, right? I mean, you have to like line them up end to end and hope it goes straight through.
Well, in order to get two fibers connected, yes, you have to either do that, line them up end to end, or you have to splice them, which is heat them up a whole bunch and have them melt and meld together, splicing.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so that's
and some of that's proprietary technology, I would guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so my first 3 months was learning about the connectorization and how we build connectors. And now I'm on to the cabling, right? So you make all your fiber and then you have to package it, right? That's basically what it is. It's fancy packaging for glass, such that it can be put in your home or put under the ground or put in submarine trenches, wherever it goes in the world, or from building to building, wherever it needs to be.
And so, and you guys make like lots of fiber optic cable, right? I mean,
cable,
you guys
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you make it, it's always better to make very, very long pieces of cable so that you minimize splicing, right?
Right. Yeah. You want to reduce the number of times that you have to cut the fiber.
So we're tell me if we go off the rails here on, because I'm sure we already are. We just haven't.
I don't even know what to title this episode so far.
Yeah. So okay. So you put these. Okay, so you're doing a fiber optic installation. You have a gigantic spool of this stuff. Like, it's a really big spool, right? I mean, these are like
you can have a spool of fiber of just the glass, an individual strand of glass that is somewhere between 30 and 50 kilometers long.
Whoa.
And I can hold it in my chest.
30 kilometers of fiber optic glass. Okay, so this fiber...
I think, right? Like that, I could be well off on that, but it's...
well, that's okay. Who's going to look it up? Okay, what's the diameter or let's work with circles. What's the radius of this little...
they are, I think, with everything, so there's different components. There's the core, where the actual light travels through, the cladding, from which the light bounces off when it's inside the core, and then there's a coating. And the coating is up to 250 microns all the way across.
250 microns, so that's a quarter of
a millimeter.
Of a millimeter.
And that's not the glass part. That's a protective part around the glass. The glass is a little bit smaller.
Okay, so this thing is so there's four. You could put four of them in a millimeter. No, correct. It's diameters, right? So you put diameter edge to edge, it would be a millimeter long, and you can wrap up how many, like, multiple kilometers and just hold it on you.
Yeah, in your chest.
Right. Okay,
and then you can have that gets really, really big, really, really fast.
Yeah,
you can have these reels of cable. Right, cable is a lot of fiber all bundled together. And these reels can be 9 or 10 feet tall.
Wow. And you use that to lay across,
and they're thick.
Yeah, and they go across the ocean and stuff.
Some of them do, not the ones that I deal with. We I don't think make the cables for submarine trenches.
Oh,
I think there's only a couple of companies in the world that do that.
We got to get Brock involved in this somehow with a helicopter and fiber optic cable in a submarine.
Hey,
can you talk about submarine trenches? It seems like the Navy should be involved in submarine trenches.
Probably.
All right. Okay. All right. Good. So you're doing rotations, and you worked with hooking them together.
That was the first rotation.
Yeah.
But I'm now on to the second rotation, which is more of the how do we put together all of the fibers into a cable.
And you can't just because like if you're on so how do you do that? Because if you try to bend the cable, then the length of the fiber has, does it matter when you go around the corner? What
do you mean?
Well, like, because if you have a train track and you have two rails and you're making a big left turn, then the right rail has to be longer than the left rail, right? And so if you have the same linear distance, it's not going to go the right rail is going to run out before the left rail. Mm-hmm. So if you have fiber optic cables, they'll have the wires, the fibers in there, and when you bend that to go, I don't know, around the corner in a building or through a conduit or something, that it has to be able to.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about as far as the process goes.
Okay, all right,
but that is solved.
That's got to be. That's a solved problem.
That is solved.
We'll have to talk about that on the special version of the buff.
It'll be on
the dark web buff.
No, it'll be on the Patreon account that we'll hook up, and you can pay for extra access for extra tidbits.
There you go, and you can. There you go. Yeah, it is on the dark web. That's you have to find it though on your own because it's dark. So, all right, and this is the second one. And how many of these rotations? How many pieces are there?
There's 4. I didn't include the first one because the first one for us was about 5 or 6 weeks long, not even. But that mostly dealt with the fiber installation side of things.
Wow. Okay. So you're just doing Johnny Fiber, man. Okay. That's great. All right. Always have fiber in your diet.
Certainly. That's right. Yep.
All right. So
Yeah, little known fact. That's how fiber optic cable is really made. It's not merely made from glass. It's just
fiber.
You just get fiber from apples and from broccoli.
Yeah.
They strain it really, really hard.
Well, isn't that what happened when Doc Brown updated the flux capacitor? It's like that now with fiber, right? You can dump all sorts of stuff in there. Yeah.
It's all organic.
Yes, that's how it should be. So, all right. So what's going to be coming up here? So we are recording now late August, and this episode should drop on about the 27th or 28th, something like that. What is that Tuesday? I think it'll drop on
we missed an episode for the first time in years.
It might not have been a year, but every now we ran into some technical difficulties. I have to say that with regard to travel schedules and remote locations and getting sound that was adequate for the for the high standards of broadcast excellence that we maintain.
That's right.
But so we apologize for that. What do we say? We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. Right. And so
if your Tuesday morning commute was just a little bit less lonely, we apologize.
Yeah. So you can always
send us an email with a complaint, and we will attempt to remedy.
Yeah, we will take care of you if you can take care of us. But so we're going to have some. We're going to go through the summer school thing and the kinds of things that I've learned. Getting into when we start formally in September. I guess that'll be right after Labor Day. We'll start those things. We'll go through a summer school review and some of those things, and we'll look in. We have some other stuff coming up that I'm not at liberty to say quite yet, but those things will be. It promises to be. Just like every year, it promises to be an interesting autumn.
Well, now you're keeping me in the dark.
Well, there's. I actually have a number of really great ideas that, as opposed to my normal ideas,
Which are just subpar ideas.
Yes. So we have a number of things coming up, and so it will be a great autumn. Of course, if there's a topic you would like us to investigate, please let us know. In fact, the Shackleton episodes that we did about a year and a half ago were a consequence of some conversations we had with some listeners. So if there's something you would like to hear about, we will investigate that. And, we are your portal to the world's knowledge outside of, the Google machine and all that stuff. We will get you where you need to go. So,
and actual professors and people that really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we will, but we get If it's something we don't know and can't figure out, we will get big brain smart heads on there. We have some stuff going on that we're working with Bob on the rocket thing. There's some interesting things going on with stranded astronauts and political and what would you call it? Political and just general. How do you take care of people when they're stuck in space kind of thing? It's corporations live in a political world, and sometimes things need to be done to make sure that people are treated well. And we'll talk about that sort of thing. And who knows what else we're going to come up with. We may discover something interesting that needs to be discussed, and that is something we will do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed your vacation.
My school. Harry, I'll give you a preamble here on this, and this would be a running theme. It was friggin' incredible. It was. It's hard to say it was the best 8 weeks of my life because that's really hard to pinpoint that. But it was absolutely phenomenal. And the people at La Table Round Institute for Architecture and Craft, whatever it's called, the group that runs this thing out of Belgium, they are top notch and wonderful folks. And we'll introduce you to them as we move along. And we're going to have a little hint. We're going to have some of the big brain smart heads that taught me here on the show, and they will tell you what an exemplary student I was, and tell you about
caused zero mischief. I can imagine.
I was mischief free for 8 weeks, and that was probably what made it one of the best 8 weeks of my life. So,
well, that's good. Well, I know I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure the listeners are as well. And for all of you out there, if you have anything you want to send us or topics you'd like to have us explore, please go ahead and give us a shout out and let us know. But in the meantime, remember to seek the good, live virtuously, and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life. It's going to be a great day.